Apparently, we have withdrawn from the World Health Organization. This is a special branch of the UN that's been around since 1948. A lot of it was about this and the inability to demonstrate independence from inappropriate political influence. And even that after the pandemic, the WHO rejected that it could have ever come from there. And I got into this, and this is actually very, very interesting. I think the gut reaction to leaving the World Health Organization is to say, why would you leave something about health? Well, let's talk about it. So in 2024, one of their bodies, the World Health Assembly, adopted these amendments. They call them the International Health Regulations, and it expands the WHO's authority over international public health responses. It creates additional authorities that promote the ability to facilitate equitable access of health commodities. Now, there's going to be these two words that are really important in all this stuff. It's going to be solidarity and equity. And these new regulations, which impact all of the WHO member states, it determines the member states' rights and obligations. Now, think about that. So you put money into the WHO, they create a body that then determines your rights and obligations. And then the amendments that they created introduced the establishment of these new international health regulation authorities. Now, to be fair to the WHO, the whole purpose of the WHO, or a lot of it, is to prevent pandemics. So the idea is to force coordination among the member states. These amendments also, though, include provisions to strengthen access to medical products and financing based on equity. So this is all a lot of word salad, but you think we put money in, that's the financing, it's distributed based on equity. And here's that solidarity language. And when you get to what they're talking about with equity, they're creating this coordinating financial mechanism. Think of it, I'm sure it's like some kind of bank, that is going to equitably address the needs and priorities of developing countries. So again, we put in the money, it goes into this bank, which then distributes it out based on the equitable needs and priorities of developing countries. Sounds a lot like the way that things went before Donald Trump came around, right? Okay, RFK Jr. said that we're still going to cooperate with other nations. We're just not going to jeopardize our civil liberties, undermine our Constitution, or give away our treasured sovereignty. This is where the solidarity thing comes in. And as somebody who lived in Europe for a long time, solidarity is a concept that Europeans think about and promote a lot. Now, what does solidarity mean? So the WHO is coordinating international responses that focus on political issues like solidarity. So this is something that RFK said. Secretary Rubio said, we're not going to tolerate international policies that infringe on American speech, privacy, or personal liberties. So how would speech, privacy, and personal liberties be related to solidarity? Well, because when this World Health Assembly adopted the amendments to the international health regulations that focus on solidarity, remember, part of what they did is create additional authorities that promote the ability to facilitate things, okay? Well, some of those things might be how you talk about pandemics. And the Trump has big issues about how the WHO addressed talking about certain things. If the flashlights of words like misinformation are going off in your mind, they should be. That's the kind of stuff that RFK Jr. is talking about when he mentions jeopardizing civil liberties, undermining the Constitution, and ceding away America's treasured sovereignty. And we give about 20% of the annual budget to the WHO, which has 190 plus states in it, and we only get one vote. And moreover, there's a very waste, fraud, and abuse type thing that has been going on at the WHO. The Associated Press reported, for example, not a right-wing outlet, that $200 million a year from the WHO were spent on travel expenses. $200 million is more than the WHO spent on AIDS, tuberculosis, and malaria treatments combined. In the Associated Press report, they point out that Dr. Margaret Chan, who was then the director of the WHO, this lady, went to visit health workers in West Africa, and then while she was there, she spent the night at the presidential suite at the Palm Camayen Hotel, which cost $1,000 a night. Stayed in the presidential suite. This is the fancy luxury hotel. Okay, and there's more. There has apparently been a big problem with this in the WHO, actually. Apparently, WHO workers who went in to fight Ebola had a huge problem with this. And in my research, it seems like the straw that broke the camel's back was this really important month right around this time. Because it sounds like the WHO was warned about all this basically at the end of 2020. But not only was that warning withheld for a while, the WHO then states this 2 weeks later. So these are really important 2 weeks because this is right at the time when it's coming out. And you got to remember, this is like the most crucial time for that situation. And then on January 7th, these guys figure out something important and don't report it to them. They're supposed to. They're member nations, right? And then the head of the WHO goes there to talk about it basically at the end of January and specifically praises their transparency. And they did not apparently recognize the potential of the problem officially until late February. This basically shows that they were not able to do their most fundamental job for public health. So what do we get instead? Of course, the America First Global Health Strategy. It cites that health programs we're funding have become super wasteful. Less than 40% of the money we put in goes into frontline supplies and healthcare workers. It also says that we've been really successful when we do things directly. And it also says that there's been a lot of grift by CEOs in the healthcare space when it comes to public health projects. I just thought this is interesting because this is something that historically Democrats would definitely be interested in hearing, but of course, not right now, probably. And honestly, look, I try to be totally unbiased here, but I gotta say, I love this. Look, they talk about in the America First healthcare strategy that the previous models created a culture of dependency. This is Marco Rubio designing this. He says that success for foreign assistance programs should mean that programs actually get smaller over time. Yes, my friend. Yes, thank you. And moreover, the America First program says that we're going to procure the healthcare goods that we use to do public health outside the United States from American companies as part of our foreign assistance programs. Yeah, I mean, another thing that could only happen pre-Trump is that a lot of this money that we were putting into the WHO, it went to buy medical supplies produced by these guys, basically a subsidy for the development of their own healthcare manufacturing economy. And I just wanted to show you this. So I was looking at the America First strategy and I was searching for the word American. Look at how many times in this one page the word American comes up. I mean, that means they're focused on Americans. And Donald Trump has put 100% tariff on drugs that are produced outside the United States and imported into it. It's all part of this deal with this new model that like we're gonna be managing how we use our own health dollars managed in the United States. We can project US influence out from us because we manufacture the stuff. Whereas in this old model where we were doing the WHO, which is part of the UN, we're basically having the taxpayers give money into the UN, which gives it to the WHO. There's all these sort of grifters in the WHO. It's slow and bureaucratic. It goes into this big melting pot, procuring goods from all over the place. You know what I'm saying? And interestingly, the White House is starting to talk about public health in terms of biosecurity, which is an interesting word. Because biosecurity leads you to do things like establish global surveillance for disease threats. And it also specifically moves your policy away from this concept of world health. World health is a very squishy concept. Health can mean a lot of things. And it brings your policies closer to things like equitable access. It's definitely not as America First, focused on things like purely putting out global surveillance to ensure that infectious diseases don't come into the country, which was one of the reasons we were in the WHO, which they clearly failed at. But we are kind of leaving the WHO with a bad stink in the room. We are failing to pay our membership dues for both 2024 and 2025, leaving the alliance with $250 million basically in debt. And the statement from the State Department is that the cost borne by the US taxpayer and the US economy after the WHO's failures before has just been too high. So what do you think? Would you rather public health be in the hands of the WHO or this new America First global health strategy?